revealed the motive. Lexia Alexander was killed 3 years ago, and prosecutors have charged Ronnie Walker with capital murder.
She had run away before. 14-year-old Lexia Alexander wasn't new to the system, a bright but troubled teen from Pasco County, Florida, who had bounced between foster homes and short-term guardianships. But in May 2022, her disappearance wasn't followed by another tearful reunion or a return to juvenile court. This time, it ended in blood. On a humid Friday morning, a groundskeeper discovered her body in a remote clearing near an abandoned orange grove just outside Dade City. She was lying face up. Her hands were loosely clenched, her eyes still open. According to the medical examiner, she had been shot 6 times, the final round fired at point-blank range to her forehead. A child. Executed. Even the most seasoned investigators flinched. It wasn't a drive-by. It wasn't random. It was personal. It was methodical, said one detective at the scene. Whoever did this wanted her dead, and wanted us to see it. Police tape closed in around the grove. Drones circled overhead. Local news vans gathered at the edge of the crime scene as whispers of the girl's identity spread. Within hours, it was confirmed. The victim was Lexia Alexander, missing for 4 days. Her foster parent had filed the report, but with a history of running away, the alert hadn't triggered immediate urgency. That changed the moment her body was found. Lexia had been wearing the same clothes she'd last been seen in: denim shorts, a black hoodie, and a pair of pink Converse. Blood patterns suggested she had been kneeling when the final shot was fired. Investigators found 38 caliber shell casings at the scene, along with tire tracks leading back to a main road. Her cell phone was missing. Her purse, too. But it wasn't a robbery. It was a message. Within 48 hours, the Pasco County Sheriff's Office held a press conference. They didn't name a suspect, but they made one thing clear. This wasn't just a murder. It was an execution. The press circled around one phrase: why would anyone do this to a child? Behind closed doors, however, detectives were already zeroing in on someone, a teenage boy with a record, a reputation, and a secret. Ronnie Walker, 17 years old. According to digital evidence, Lexia had texted him in the early hours of the morning she went missing. Phone records showed a call between them that lasted nearly 40 minutes. Surveillance footage later placed Walker's car near the area where her body was found. But it wasn't just tech that pointed to him, it was what came next. A second teen, Robert Creed, came forward with a story. Walker had picked him up that night. They drove around, and somewhere during the ride, Lexia joined them. But Creed's version didn't end with a simple drop-off. He claimed that Walker became erratic, pulled a gun, and forced Lexia out of the car. And then, he said, he shot her. Creed led police to a service station where he said they had stopped to buy gloves and cleaning supplies. Surveillance video corroborated part of the account, but not all. No footage showed the shooting. No gun had been recovered, and Walker's family maintained he was being set up. Still, the damage was done. Walker was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The community demanded answers. Protesters held signs outside the courthouse. One read simply, "Justice for Lexia." And hovering over it all was Sheriff Grady Judd, who hadn't been involved in the investigation but had something to say. When you stand over a 14-year-old girl and put a bullet in her head, you're not just a killer, you're a coward. And every cop who saw that scene will carry it for the rest of their lives. When Ronnie Walker walked into the courtroom for his arraignment, he didn't look like the image most had formed in their minds. Slim, soft-spoken, barely 5'8", with short, clean-cut hair and a blank stare that prosecutors would later call emotionless. But according to the state, beneath the surface of that quiet teenager was a calculated killer. One who had lured a 14-year-old girl to her death over a mix of fear, rage, and shame. The prosecution's theory was brutal in its simplicity. Ronnie Walker had maintained a secret relationship with Lexia Alexander. Though just 17, Walker was legally an adult in the eyes of Florida's criminal justice system. Investigators say the two exchanged messages for months, often late at night, often deleted shortly after. No one in Lexia's life knew about Ronnie. But friends at her school told police she had mentioned a boyfriend who was older and didn't want anyone to find out. One classmate claimed Lexia once showed her a blurry photo of him in a car, captioned, "He said he loves me but can't let people know." What broke that silence, prosecutors believe, was disease. According to testimony and medical records reviewed during the pre-trial hearing, Ronnie Walker had recently tested positive for a sexually transmitted infection. Text messages recovered from a cloud backup, one of the few the teen hadn't wiped, revealed a string of frantic, angry messages to Lexia days before her murder. One read, "You did this to me. Don't lie. I know it was you." Prosecutors say that single belief, whether true or not, may have become the motive for murder. In court, the assistant state attorney laid it out plainly. He thought she gave him something. He panicked. He snapped. And then he drove her to a remote field, forced her to kneel, and executed her at point-blank range. One bullet entered her head from less than 12 inches away. But Walker didn't act alone, at least. Not completely. In a shocking twist, the key witness against him was his own passenger that night. Robert Creed, 16, a friend and sometimes rival. Creed told investigators he had been picked up by Walker to hang out and didn't know Lexia was going to join them. When she did, he claimed, the atmosphere in the car turned tense. He wasn't talking to her. He just stared out the window, Creed told detectives. When we stopped, I thought they were going to argue, but then he told her to get out, and I saw the gun. Creed said he panicked and froze as shots rang out. He told police Walker returned to the car, shaking and mumbling, "It's done. It's done." Later that night, Creed claimed, they drove to a gas station, bought bleach wipes and gloves, and tried to clean the inside of Walker's vehicle. Surveillance footage confirmed the store visit, glove purchases, a bottle of bleach. But the defense attacked the rest of Creed's story mercilessly. Walker's attorney pointed to inconsistencies in Creed's timeline. Phone records placed Creed's device in the same general area, but GPS pings were vague. More importantly, Creed had lied to police twice before giving this account, and only after officers threatened to charge him as an accessory. He saved himself, the defense attorney argued. He was just as involved, if not more, and now he's blaming Ronnie to walk free. Then came the most haunting moment in the courtroom. Prosecutors played a short clip from inside the interview room. Creed, hands shaking, telling detectives through tears, "He pulled the trigger. Not me. I didn't even move. I didn't know what to do." But the defense countered with chilling audio from Walker's own interrogation. Calm, quiet, controlled. Asked if he knew Lexia was dead, Walker simply said, "If she is, then I guess I'm in trouble." The weight of the trial pressed on everyone in the room. The judge, the jury, the press. No matter who was lying, one truth remained. A child had been executed, and someone, or maybe more than one, had planned it. And outside the courthouse, Sheriff Grady Judd had already issued a statement. There's no sentence harsh enough for someone who looks a child in the eyes and pulls a trigger. None. In most murder trials, a confession, even secondhand, can be enough to sway a jury. But in the case of Lexia Alexander, truth was a moving target, and every statement seemed to unravel the one before it. The state's star witness, Robert Creed, had painted a vivid picture. Ronnie Walker pulled the trigger. He drove the car. He bought the gloves. He tried to scrub the blood from the back seat. But under cross-examination, that picture began to blur. Creed had originally denied even being in the car. He told officers he hadn't seen Lexia in over a week. It wasn't until detectives presented security footage and mentioned the possibility of being charged as an accessory to murder that he changed his story. In court, the defense pounced. "So, only after being told you could spend the rest of your life in prison, you suddenly remembered that Ronnie committed murder?" Creed shifted in his seat. His voice cracked. "I didn't know what to say. I was scared." The defense also revealed that Creed had a prior record: burglary, resisting arrest, and 2 charges of providing false statements to law enforcement in unrelated cases. To the jury, this wasn't just about memory gaps, it was about credibility. And then came a turning point no one expected. The name Creed started appearing in text messages sent by Lexia days before her death. Recovered from Lexia's old Snapchat logs and introduced into evidence by the defense, one message read, "I don't trust Creed. He's trying to get in Ronnie's head." Another, more alarming. "Creed said he has something on me. If I disappear, check him first." The courtroom fell silent. The prosecution tried to downplay the messages, suggesting they were out of context or part of a typical teenage drama. But for the jury, the suggestion that the girl herself had expressed fear about the very person accusing Walker landed like a thunderclap. "So now we have a girl who feared Creed," the defense said in closing arguments. "We have Creed lying multiple times until he cuts a deal, and we have a confession, under duress, with no physical evidence tying Ronnie Walker directly to the gun." Still, the prosecution stood firm. They pointed to the surveillance video of Walker and Creed buying bleach and gloves, to cell phone pings placing Walker near the crime scene, and most powerfully, to the trajectory of the fatal bullet fired at close range, at an angle that matched someone of Walker's height. But the defense had their own angle. If Creed was in the car, had access to gloves, and admitted to being present at the scene, why wasn't he on trial? In a rare move, the judge allowed the jury to submit questions to both legal teams. One stood out. Was Robert Creed ever offered immunity in exchange for his testimony? The prosecution wouldn't confirm or deny, citing ongoing investigations. The defense didn't need an answer. The seed of doubt had been planted. And for a trial that hinged entirely on who pulled the trigger and who might be lying to save themselves, that doubt could mean the difference between life and death. Outside, protesters gathered again, some holding signs that read, "Justice for Lexia," others with "Creed lied, Lexia died." The case had split the community, and inside the courtroom, emotions ran high. The victim's mother broke down during closing arguments. Walker's mother sobbed quietly behind her son, and through it all, one voice echoed across Florida even though he wasn't inside the courthouse. Sheriff Grady Judd, once again speaking to reporters, said, "If you ask me, both of them know more than they're saying. But here's the problem. The only person who could tell us the truth was buried at 14. The jury would soon have to decide, was Ronnie Walker a killer? Or was he just the only one left to blame?" Though not directly involved in the investigation, Sheriff Grady Judd once again became the voice that many officers and citizens turned to for clarity in the storm. He didn't hold back. "When you see the body of a child kneeling on the ground, with a bullet to the head from less than 12 inches away, you don't forget that," Judd told a Tampa Bay Sentinel reporter. "That scene will haunt every cop who was there for the rest of their lives." According to internal sources, multiple officers from the Pasco County Sheriff's Office received trauma counseling in the days following the discovery of Lexia's body. One veteran sergeant reportedly vomited on scene. Another requested leave after 20 years of active service. Grady Judd's message wasn't one of political positioning. It was raw, personal, honest. This wasn't just murder. This was evil, cold, calculated, intentional. He went further, calling out systemic failures that allowed a vulnerable girl to fall through every safety net. Lexia didn't just die in that field. She died in pieces every time the system ignored her, every time an adult gave up. She ran away from home not because she was rebellious, but because no one earned her trust. That's the part that keeps me up at night. At the time of his remarks, Ronnie Walker's trial was nearing its conclusion. Prosecutors were seeking the death penalty, citing cruelty and premeditation. Defense attorneys fought back, arguing the case relied too heavily on an unreliable witness with a criminal record and a motive to lie. But for Judd, the legal arguments paled in comparison to the larger crisis the case exposed: youth violence driven by emotion, impulsivity, and digital toxicity. We've got teenagers killing each other, not over drugs or gang wars, but because of rumors, because of pride, because of things they read on their phones at 2 a.m. That's a moral collapse, and we'd better start facing it. He didn't just speak about Walker, He spoke about Robert Creed, the only eyewitness, and possibly the accomplice. You want to know who pulled the trigger? That's the jury's job, but I'll say this. If you were in that car, if you watched it happen, if you helped clean up the blood, you're not innocent. Judd also issued a strong call for reform. Digital behavior tracking for at-risk youth under probation or foster care. Equal accountability for minors who facilitate or conceal violent crimes. Stronger interagency coordination between child welfare services and law enforcement. But the most powerful moment came at the end of his statement. Surrounded by deputies in green uniforms, Judd looked directly into the camera and said, "Lexia was 14 years old. She never got to graduate, to drive, to fall in love. She died on her knees in a field because no one was watching. If you think this is someone else's problem, look again. Because this is happening in neighborhoods like yours." The clip was shared over 12 million times in 48 hours, resonating far beyond Florida. Grady Judd's words echoed not just as a warning but as a memorial. As closing arguments approached, the nation waited. Would the jury believe Robert Creed or see him as the true puppet master? Would Ronnie Walker be sentenced to die or walk away? No matter the verdict, one truth remained, etched into the heart of the case. Lexia Alexander was executed, and someone made sure of it. And Sheriff Grady Judd made one last promise. This child will not be forgotten, not by me, not by my deputies, and not by this country, not if I have anything to say about it.